Hello everyone. I hope you are doing well and staying safe out there during this trying time. I want to thank you for checking out the Sentinel Between Two Lakes, a White River Light Station and Museum presentation. Initially, this was going to be an in-person presentation taking place 3 different times within the White Lake community. Unfortunately, due to circumstances that are out of our control, we are not able to do that and will thus be doing this electronically. The presentation here will be discussing the keepers of the White River Light Station while it was an active aid to navigation between the years of 1876 and 1959. All information provided in this presentation came from the archives of the White River Light Station and Museum and the Thomas Tagg book entitled White River Light Station. Before we go any further, let me introduce myself. My name is Matt Varnum, pictured in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide. I have been the curator of the White River Light Station and Museum for the last 5+ years. I am employed by the SABLE Point's Lighthouse Keepers Association, or SPLCA, for the last 7+ years. SPLCA are the ones who preserve and maintain the White River Light Station and Museum. I am a graduate from Central Michigan University, earning a bachelor's degree in history with a museum studies minor and a master's degree in public administration. Now I am sure some of you watching this are wondering who the SABLE Point's Lighthouse Keepers Association are. SPLCA is a 501c3 nonprofit headquartered in Ludington, Michigan. The mission of SPLCA is to preserve, promote, and educate the public and make our lighthouses accessible to all. The White River Light Station and Museum is not the only Lake Michigan lighthouse that SPLCA preserves and maintains. In fact, there are 3 others along with the light station that are maintained and preserved. The other 3 are Big SABLE Point Lighthouse and the Ludington North Breakwater Lighthouse, both located in Ludington, and Little SABLE Point Lighthouse, located at Silver Lake. SPLCA took over the preservation and maintenance work of the White River Light Station and Museum in 2012. Fruitland Township still owns the property and assists us with larger projects that come up. The White River Light Station, a brief history. Before getting into the keepers of the White River Light Station, I wanted to share some important dates in the history of the light station with you. In 1866, an act of Congress appropriates money for the construction of a channel to connect White Lake and Lake Michigan. It's also during this time that money is appropriated for a harbor light to be constructed at the channel. In 1875, construction on the main lighthouse begins on September 28th. It took the team approximately 3 months to complete the station, with work finishing on December 28th. On May 31st, 1876, the White River Light Station tower is lit for the first time. The signal it produces is a fixed white light that flashes red once each minute. After agitation and confusion with the White River Light Station beacon signal, in 1901 a lampus is brought back to the light station to alter the signal. The lens rotation speed was increased to 1 revolution every 40 seconds. After much urging by lighthouse keeper Captain William Robinson, money is appropriated for the construction of an exterior oil storage building in 1902. Once the building is completed, Captain William Robinson removes all oil stored in the basement of the White River Light Station to the newly built oil storage building. In May of 1911, plumbers arrive and install indoor plumbing and a bathtub. The White River Light Station. A brief history continued. 1918 saw a change in how the lens is lit at the White River Light Station. An electrically operated incandescent bulb replaces the kerosene lamp used in the main lighthouse tower on August 12th. The kerosene lamp and oil are kept on the grounds, as electricity at this time is not very reliable. In 1924, the remaining part of the White River Light Station is electrified. In 1939, some work is done to the building. The original chimney is removed and replaced, and the roof of the dwelling and storage building are re-roofed and shingled. 1960 saw the United States Coast Guard decommission the White River Light Station. In 1966, Fruitland Township, with help from local residents, purchases the White River Light Station from the U.S. Coast Guard. In 1970, the White River Light Station opens for the first time to the public as a museum. Now that we've gone through a few important dates here of the White River Light Station, we will now begin to go over all the keepers of the White River Light Station. Captain William Robinson, May of 1876 until March of 1919. Captain William Robinson was the very first keeper of the White River Light Station, having received his letter of appointment on May 12, 1876. One thing to note here is that Captain Robinson was not American. He was born in Tynemouth, England in 1831. As a young man, Robinson ran away from home to the sea and worked on many ships for over 10 years doing various jobs. He came to Michigan in 1867 with his wife Sarah and the 6 children they had. Altogether, Captain Robinson and Sarah had 13 children, with only 11 of them making it to adulthood. After first moving to the White Lake area, Robinson, on his own, provided a light at the mouth of the old channel into Lake Michigan. After the South Pier Head Beacon Light was constructed, William Robinson in 1872 became its keeper. During the construction of the light station in 1875, Robinson assisted by doing some masonry work. Captain Robinson was also given the task of completing some of the detail work on the main lighthouse. By late 1918, the lighthouse service deemed that Captain Robinson was too old to continue as the head keeper of the White River Light Station, and began the process to force him to retire. Soon after, the lighthouse service requested that he vacate the property, as his assistant keeper and oldest grandson, William Bush, was now seen as the head keeper by the lighthouse service. On April 2, 1919, Captain William Robinson passed away in the light station. He passed away at the age of 87 and was the oldest active keeper at the time of his death. He completed 47 years of service. There are a few stories about Captain Robinson and his strong convictions. It is said that he refused to shake hands with any man who drank spirits or gambled. He also wanted to appear very protective of government property. A boy wanted some of the empty 5-gallon cans that were originally filled with kerosene for use in the lamp of the pier head beacon light. Captain Robinson said they were government property and had to be accounted for. But he also said when he had emptied a can and was walking back along the wooden pier, the wind would, by accident of course, sometimes blow a can out of his hands, and it might fall down into the rocks along the pier and be lost. Maybe the boy should look there. On another occasion, one of the local residents asked to borrow the wheelbarrow belonging to the lighthouse service. Again, Robinson responded that he could not lend out government property, but that sometimes the wheelbarrow might be misplaced for a day or two, and he could not find it. He was also very protective of the lighthouse lamp and lens. His rules strictly forbade any of his children to climb into the lantern room unless accompanied by the captain himself. William Bush, from March of 1919 until March of 1943. William Bush was Captain Robinson's oldest grandson. He was born in the White Lake community on March 17, 1872. Before starting at the White River Light Station, William Bush was the keeper of the Manistee Lighthouse. He and his family moved into the light station dwelling in 1910. Bush's wife at this time assisted in the housekeeping of the light station and took care of the then 79-year-old William Robinson. The reason for this was because Captain Robinson had arranged with the lighthouse service that Bush would be his assistant keeper. Almost immediately, there were conflicts between the two due to Captain Robinson being very set in his ways of handling the keeper's duties, and he would refuse William Bush from performing any of those duties. Starting in April 1917, William Bush took over the major responsibilities of keeping the light station due to the advanced age of Captain Robinson, being 86 at this time. Little less than a month before the passing of his grandfather, Bush would become head keeper of the White River Light Station. During this time, William and his wife would raise 3 children. In March of 1943, William Bush would retire from the U.S. Coast Guard. Leo Wuori, February of 1943 until May of 1948. Before I continue, I just want to state that I am more than likely mispronouncing Leo's last name, and for that, I do want to apologize. Leo Wuori started off as an assistant to William Bush in 1943. When Bush retired, Leo began the head keeper's duties and would become the first U.S. Coast Guard keeper of the White River Light Station. Leo would marry a woman by the name of Frances Johnson in August of 1944, and soon after she began working as his unofficial assistant keeper. Apparently, Leo found someone who loved tending the light. With this new assistant, it freed him up to enjoy being away from the lighthouse for hunting and fishing. At first, Leo would leave Frances in the light station for a week or 2 at a time. Then it increased to a month, and at one point, several months. In 1948, Leo and Frances would leave the light station and would be replaced by other U.S. Coast Guard personnel. The reason for their departure is possibly because Leo was being forced to resign from the Coast Guard due to his neglect of duties. It was also at this time that Leo decided that married life was no longer for him and filed for divorce. Unfortunately, this is all the information we have here about Leo Wuori. Past curators, as well as I, have been doing research over the years and just cannot seem to find any additional information about Leo. If you or anyone else you know has any additional information about him, please feel free to contact us here at the White River Light Station and Museum. The White River Light Station had a keeper between June of 1948 and April of 1949. Sadly, we have had no luck finding any information or even a name of who the keeper was during this time. We have reached out to the U.S. Coast Guard, the National Archives, and the State Archives, and unfortunately have had no luck. If you or anyone you know has any information about who this might be, please contact us here at the White River Light Station and Museum. Mrs. Frances Johnson, May of 1949 until February of 1954. During her first stint at the White River Light Station with her then husband Leo, Frances Johnson loved her time at the light station. Because of that, she reached out to the U.S. Coast Guard Lieutenant Commander in Cleveland in 1948 and asked to be considered for the position as keeper of the White River Light Station. In May of 1949, Frances would find herself returning to the light station as the first civilian lighthouse keeper assigned to the White River Light Station. Frances quickly adapted to light-keeping chores. The weights that rotated the light had to be wound each day. In addition, the brass and silver of the lantern had to be polished daily, and the outside windows had to be cleaned. Frances also had to keep the lighthouse dwelling spotless for inspection, cleaning and polishing the wood floors, as well as normal household chores such as cooking or laundry. Frances would participate in the TV show What's My Line in 1953 and would win the cash prize of $50 plus the trip to New York City. When Frances Johnson finished up at the White River Light Station in 1954, she was the last female lighthouse keeper of the Great Lakes. Now there are a couple stories to share with you. Both were recorded by blogger Marilyn Turk. Splash! Help! Somebody, please help! Frances Johnson jerked her head away from the lantern window she'd been cleaning and looked toward the sound of the cries. She quickly assessed the situation, all too familiar now that the weather was warmer. Frances ran down the lighthouse steps and out to the channel, where a woman screamed and pointed at a child floundering in the water. Frances dove in and lifted the child, swimming back with him until she could hand him up to the arms of the panicked adult. "The water is deep," she told them. "You need to keep an eye on your children. Good thing I was here, or they could have been swept out to Lake Michigan." In her free time, Frances swam daily, a habit which developed her strength. During the summer months when tourists flocked to Lake Michigan, Frances's swimming muscles were tested. Once when rescuing a woman, Frances almost had to knock her unconscious just to get her back to safety. Afterwards, the woman complained about Frances's roughness with her, to which Frances replied, "Well, it was either that or let you die." Andrew Newald, from March 1954 to December of 1959. Andrew Newald would be the last keeper of the White River Light Station as an active aid to navigation. In October of 2019, I was lucky enough to meet a nephew of Andrew Newald. And since then, I have been working with him to get some information about his uncle, along with some pictures. Currently, we don't have any information or pictures about Andrew Newald. Stay tuned, and hopefully sometime this year, we will have an update at the museum about the White River Light Station's last keeper, Andrew Newald. A conclusion. In the 83 years that the White River Light Station was an active aid to navigation, it had 6 keepers. All 6, of course, serving during different times. Each one dealing with their own issues or problems, whether it be personal, professional, or what is going on in the outside world. One thing that they all shared is that they were dedicated keepers of the White River Light Station, and that they performed the duties necessary to keep the light shining. Would you like to help keep the light shining? The White River Light Station and Museum is currently looking for volunteers to help out during the 2020 season. Volunteers are the lifeblood of our organization. Without the help of those great people, there would be no way that we could do what we do in maintaining and preserving our lighthouses. If you'd like to volunteer or have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the curator, either by email at whiteriverlight@gmail.com or by phone 231-894-8265. And if there is no answer, please leave a message. Or you can visit our website at www.splka.org. I want to thank you all for taking the time to view this presentation on the keepers of the White River Light Station. I hope to see you all out here at some point during the season, whether it be during one of our concerts, visiting the museum itself, or as a volunteer. Take care, everyone, and have a nice day.